Greetings. This is General CJG here. After a hiatus of sorts, we're finally back with a new State of Star Wars podcast. This time on the Expanded Universe, focusing on one of the tie-in books of the Old Republic MMORPG. This one is basically the Revan book. So, joining me here, I got...
This is the Spotify Maniac. Good to be here again.
Yep. And we also got a returning guest from a while ago. Introduce yourself.
Hello, people. This is Darth Harbinger, also known as Arauto Cagnes.
Yep. For those that don't remember Harbinger, he was present in some of the Old Republic trailer reactions that we did many months ago. So, yep, he's back. And because this is SWTOR, of course, he had to be here. So, yep. Sadly, King will not be joining us here. He would be the other SWTOR guy to join us, so he's got some stuff to deal with, so it will be us three for now. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into this podcast. So we shall start off with, I guess, a summary of our brief thoughts on this whole book. So who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Now, I don't really have that much of a big history with this book, because I basically read this book right after finishing the second Knights of the Old Republic game. So, yeah, I viewed it as more of a natural continuation and nothing more than that. So there's that.
Okay. Harbinger, your turn.
The first time I read Revan was like years ago, back in 2016 or 15. And I already knew of the entire controversy surrounding the book due to the events in it and, Revan and the XR's characterization. However, I didn't hate it when I read it. I liked it. But that was before I played KOTOR. So after playing both Knights of the Old Republic games, after a few months, I think, or so, I reread the novel, and I still liked it. I do think there are some issues, especially with Mitra Surik, not necessarily the character herself, but the connections. But we'll get there when we cross that bridge. And I recently reread it this year as well, and I still think it's a decent book.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, then my case. Okay, mine. Well, let's just say I have no experience with SWTOR as in the game itself, or even some of its other tie-in media aside from the trailers themselves. And so technically, this book is actually my first dive into SWTOR as a whole. So that's the thing. However, I did play Knights of the Republic 1 and 2 before reading this book. And I also heard plenty of the criticisms of the Revan book before. So I was at first a bit skeptical, thinking that the book was probably going to be bad or on the mediocre side because of the criticisms and stuff. However, when reading it, I was surprised that the book was good until the last parts of part 2. That's where definitely rubs me the wrong way. But most of the book was actually good. Part 1 in particular is pretty good. Like, I don't know why there's some people saying that this book is like sucks. Like, I think that part of the Star Wars fandom that say that this book sucks or that is one of the worst, I think that definitely is over exaggerated. The other criticisms, though, we'll have to get into those later. But yeah, so yeah, I do think the book is good. It's just at the end where it starts to really drag down the experience. But we'll get into those as time goes on. So yeah, so the Ram book, I was surprised. It was better than I anticipated, but I can say that now I understand some of the bigger criticisms around this book. So yeah, that's my summarized thoughts on this book. So yeah, guys, shall we get on with finalizing the book part by part?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with part 1. So part 1, okay, who wants to give a brief summary, as brief as possible, about the events of part 1? Do you want to do it, Harbinger, or Doan, or should I do it?
I don't mind it, especially because then I can discuss the more controversial aspects of, that part. Okay, so part one is mostly focused on two characters, Revan and Lord Scourge from the True Sith Empire. Revan is on a journey to try and find answers as to why the Mandalorians really attacked the Republic, why he truly fell to the dark side, and Scourge, on the other hand, is trying to find answers as to why someone tried to kill a certain member of the Dark Council, Darth Nihilus, which is sort of the ruling body of the Empire to day-to-day affairs. The Emperor is, of course, the supreme ruler, but he doesn't handle the day-to-day affairs. He leaves that to the council. And, I pretty much agree with a lot of what General said about the first part. I think it's good. I think the biggest problem with it is the fact that no matter how Drew Karpyshyn wrote Revan, he wouldn't have reflected everyone's Revan, which is why I get the criticisms towards the book. The book isn't responsible for canonizing Revan, but I do understand, the anger and frustration with it, because no matter what, I would probably feel the same way had I played KOTOR before SOTOR, had I not been, interacting with the canonical Revan from the beginning. And I feel the same way towards my own characters in, other RPGs where you create your own character. Scourge's arc is also pretty interesting because he goes on to find that Nihilus is actually trying to kill the Emperor, or at least he's part of a group that's conspiracy to topple him because they don't want the Empire to essentially do another great hyperspace war. They believe that to be a huge, huge mistake that would just doom their civilization to die. And so he joins that effort because despite his loyalty to the Emperor, he realizes that loyalty to the Emperor and to the Empire are two different things, because the Emperor is completely willing to throw the Empire away if he needs to. And that's pretty much it. Those two diverging storylines converge on the planet of Natima, which is the Emperor's birthplace. Revan goes there to try to find answers about what happened to him, and Scourge and Nihilus go there so Nihilus can show Scourge, okay, I'm not, just manipulating you. Our Emperor is truly insane. He's willing to consume all life in the galaxy to feed his lust for power. I'll show you what he did to his birthplace. And that's it. After that, Revan gets captured by Nihilus and Scourge, and we enter part 2.
Well, before we get to part 2, let's discuss part 1 itself. Okay.
Yeah.
So, go on. You want to go first?
One thing I realized, did you guys all both play Halo 2?
I did, yes.
I have not.
If you play Halo 2, the structure is really similar to the point it's really noticeable. Scourge is basically a Star Wars interpretation of the character Arbiter, which basically starts as this loyal member of the Covenant / the Empire, and then he realizes that his leader is really crazy, so he decides to turn against them type of plot. And the constant switching perspectives between Revan and Scourge reminds me of the perspective you see between Master Chief and the Arbiter. Is it just me, or what about you, General, since you know Halo?
Well, I can certainly say that, yeah, in a way it has similarities to how Halo 2 tells a story from two perspectives, jumping back and forth between them, and then both they pretty much join together later on, though Halo 2 does diverge a little bit by once again having Chief and Arbiter split off, compared to here where Scorch and Revan actually stay together for the rest of the time. So there is similarities to how Halo 2 told the story, but not entirely. Like, there's obviously some differences. But yeah, I can see why you'd put that comparison. So yeah, I can see why. So there is that. Now, as for me, my thoughts on part one, well, I actually think it's definitely the best part of the book. Like part two, I think is the one that has the bigger issues, but part one, I think actually was pretty good, and definitely did. It definitely did feel like it was definitely addressing what Revan was doing in between Knights of the Republic 1 and 2, which, yeah, definitely needed that sort of context because we didn't have much other than he just left to find the hidden enemy that was supposedly behind the Mandalorian Wars and behind everything, according to Knights of the Republic 2. So that was all we got, and we didn't know or hear much until, of course, well, this book pretty much addresses that. So it handled that pretty well. Now, as for what you said, Harbinger, in regards to the Revan's characterization, I mean, I don't remember hearing that criticism. No one, have you heard it before?
Oh yes, that's more on part 2, but I do have a rebuttal for that, so...
Well, I mean the criticism of people saying that this is not the Revan they saw or the Revan they made in KOTOR 1. Like, I've never heard that criticism.
Okay, you wanna know the canonical depiction of KOTOR 1's Revan? Basically, you're the one guy, the canonical options of that video game is basically all light side choices.
All of them, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know what type of characterization you are actually hoping for the constant light side and no ambiguity person. I mean, if that's what you like, I mean, all power to you, but there wasn't really much of a character in the first game.
Yeah, there wasn't much. So Lucasfilm confirmed that all light side choices in KOTOR 1, I think they did it for the second game as well, but it's the first one they said that yes, all light side choices are canon, so there's that. Plus we have the central guys that pretty much say what happened in that game. So pretty much confirmed that yeah, all light side choices were canon. So I don't really know what specific characterization they had for KOTOR 1's Revan. Especially he's kind of a blank slate, which makes sense in the context of why that's the case. Kind of meant to be your character in a way.
Yeah, it's pretty much because everyone had like their own Revan. Kind of like I have my own Sith Inquisitor in Soto. Like if someone tried to write a book about the Sith Inquisitor, I would probably this is not my Inquisitor.
Yeah.
It's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's understandable. I don't agree with the criticism, but I think I get it because I probably feel the same way had I played KOTOR before SOTOR.
But what I would say is this is probably the most real version. I mean, for God's sake, it's written by Drew Karpyshyn. It can't be more definitive than that.
Revan's characterization in this book, I think is mostly done well. In part one, I think it's done well. It's part two where I actually get issues with it, but we'll get into that later. Part one, I actually think it handled it good. So I don't really have any issues with Revan's characterization in this book. Same goes for the other KOTOR 1 characters that show up, like Canderous, T3, and 4, Bastila. Like, the characterizations here were actually done fairly well. I didn't have any like major criticisms or stuff that made me like question my head or nothing like that. In part one, I had no issue like that.
But I do have a problem because KOTOR 2 does say that Revan asked Kart Onasi to follow his orders to protect the Republic or something. So, and that scene does not actually appear in the Revan novel. Now, it could actually happen off screen or off page, but I wonder, did Drew Karpyshyn forgot Kart exist? Because HK-47 is mentioned, Zalbar is mentioned, Canderous is a crucial character, T3 is a crucial character, Bastila is a crucial character, Jolie is mentioned, Juhani is mentioned, Zalbar and Mission, but no, not a single page referencing Kart Onasi. Like, what is this?
Actually, even if it hadn't mentioned Kart Onasi, I think Karpyshyn would have still not even mentioned their conversation of Revan tasking Karf to pretty much prepare the Republic for whatever's going to happen. I'll mention the reason why when we get to part two, because it's actually a bigger problem with just that specific scene. So
yeah, I think I know exactly what you're getting into. but we'll leave that for part 3.
Yeah.
And there's like a funny scene mentioned, like Bastila and Revan sending HK-47 to the Jedi Council or Jedi Temple to pacify him or something, which doesn't work at all.
Oh god, that's something. Yeah. Well, I heard that basically they were pretty much like, yeah, let's not take HK-47. He'll just be blasting around everything, which yeah, it's kind of funny.
And another interesting thing is like, Jolie is now back with the Jedi Order. Okay, that's something.
Yeah, I actually didn't know what happened to Jolie after Coda 1. Huh. I guess that.
Jolie seems to have rejoined the Jedi Order according to what is referenced.
Yeah, both Drew Honey and Jolie rejoined the order.
So that's interesting. Now, actually, since this one issue I have, though it actually isn't an issue from the book itself, but rather other media of Star Wars, there's actually one kind of a contradiction, but it's more of an oversight. That it's not an oversight of Quarter 1 and 2, actually. It's an oversight from the Essential Guides. So basically, so Part 1 pretty much shows that the Mandalorians were pretty much tricked into or being manipulated into starting the Mandalorian Wars by the Sith. Even having Mandalore the Ultimate pretty much revealed to Revan at the end that we were manipulated by the Sith, as pretty much seen this Part 1. Quarter 1 and 2, the second in particular, Quarter 1 has this one mention from Canderous, this one dialogue that says that the Sith approached them before the wars. So that's pretty much it. But Quarter 2 pretty much says that this true Sith were pretty much behind the Mandalorian wars, behind all the stuff. So it's following Quarters 1 and 2 well. But the Essential Guides make zero mention of the true Sith pretty much manipulating the Mandalorians, starting the Mandalorian Wars. No guide, not even post 2011 guides. Like Essential Guide to Warfare does not even bother saying it.
There's more of a contradiction in KOTOR 2 more than that. So it's basically a contradiction over a contradiction. So what basically happened is, if you have a dialogue with Canderous in the first Knights of the Old Republic game, he basically says that the Sith offered them a battle that would be never forgotten or something. Now, the first time I saw this, I was heavily confused because, like, what Sith are they referencing? Because at the time of 2003, as far as the EU fans knew, the whole Sith species were extinct and they were all disappeared. So, I mean, are these the Sith of Exar Kun's remnant? Or are these Sith some kind of a new action? Wasn't really specified until SWTOR, but I'm pretty sure BioWare intended it to be the original Sith species. I don't know, because Canderous does say the Sith offered them a battle. And then you go to KOTOR 2 and it says, like, Revan told Canderous that it was the Sith that tricked them into fighting the Republic. Like, Canderous, you already knew that it was the Sith who offered you to fight against the Republic, but then it was Revan who actually informed, like, something doesn't make sense. It's more KOTOR 2's fault instead of the Revan novel and the SWTOR's fault.
Well, I guess in that case, then yeah. The one I'm mentioning is that literally no essential guides or reference books say that the Mandalorian Wars were pretty much started because the Sith made the Mandalorians do it. None. Like, not even the 6-page passage of the entire Mandalorian Wars of the Essential Guide to Warfare says it, which baffles my mind. Like, and it just... The only one that mentions is the Essential Reader's Companion, but that's not an in-universe source, so as far as I know, every single Essential Guide from an in-universe perspective does not know shit about who actually made the Mandalorian Wars begin. Like, none. And I'm just baffled that literally there's no mention of it. The Essential Guide to Warfare would have been perfect to showing that, plus also talking about Quarter 1 and 2's events, but yeah, so I don't know what the hell is up with that. What do you guys think of that?
Definitely shouldn't be mentioned.
I mean, I initially thought it was more of who was the Mandalore the Ultimate, right?
Ultimate.
I think it was either Mandalore the Ultimate wanted some ultimate glory, or maybe revenge against the Republic for what happened during the Great Sith War with Exar Kun and Uli Keldroma. Maybe they wanted revenge against the Republic for that.
Could have been either. So, yeah. That's what all the essential guides say, that they either wanted revenge or they wanted the glory of battle or something like that. Basically, just Mandalorians just pretty much wanting to just conquer the galaxy for either honor or for revenge. So neither one of them say that it's because the Sith pretty much manipulated them into doing it. No guide says it. So yeah, I'm obviously gonna excuse the earlier guys, essential chronology and stuff, for not saying it because those, well, older and Solter wasn't even a thing. Even if Kotor 2 kind of hinted at it, but still, I can give it the benefit of the doubt. But the Essential Guide to Warfare and even the reference books like the Jedi Path, Book of Sith, like none of them mention it, and it makes no sense to me. So. Yeah, that's probably the only big issue I have with part 1, which is not really an issue with the book. It's more of an issue of how the rest of the EU treats these events. So there's that. So yeah. Any other thing you guys want to mention about part 1?
It does mention about the rivalry between Ludo Crash and
Nagasadao.
yeah. And how Bishop was like, let those two fight. I'm gonna do my thing. I really thought it was interesting because it does explain what Bishop was doing during the golden age of the Sith and, fall of the Sith Empire, and it doesn't just gloss over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting, yeah. I read something in regards to the origins of the Sith Empire from Soltor. That apparently they were remnants from, what was it, Nagasadao's forces that they split off from the group.
Not Nagasadao's forces, but the old Sith Empire. Pretty much refugees.
Okay, well,
The people who survived the onslaught of the Republic after the end of the Great Hyperspace War.
okay. Well, I read an interview from KOTOR 2's Chris Avalon. He pretty much said that the true Sith that they referenced there has pretty much the same backstory of this SWTOR Sith Empire. Refugees from the Great Hyperspace War from Nagasadao's, I think, forces. So that's that same backstory you said, Harbinger, is the same one that they intended for KOTOR 2's True Sith Empire. So I guess SWTOR did took what KOTOR 2 was building with that and went with it. A few creative liberties.
Yeah.
With it.
Partially.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I was about to say, because the way Avalon describes the true Sith is it's much weirder than what we end up getting in SWTOR.
Weirder.
Yeah, I remember him kind of hinting at some more exoteric Sith. I think it would be interesting to see that develop as well. Even though I do like the true Sith in SWTOR.
I see. Okay. Well, then I guess they partially did take some stuff from KOTOR 2. Okay, so there's that. Anything else to mention on part 1, guys?
Revan and Kendra's looking for the mask of Mandalore.
Yeah, so they were basically looking for Mandalore's mask because Revan and Malak pretty much hid it so that the Mandalorian Wars would never happen again. So yeah, they stumble up on the Clan Ordo and they managed to find it, have some battles, and then Revan pretty much leaves to Natima while Canderous takes the mask, and that's how he got the mask, as we see in KOTOR 2.
Hiatus also appears. So there's
temporarily in the Jedi Temple when Revan was searching the library for, what was it? I believe he was searching for Mitra Surik.
Yeah, he was searching for information on what happened to her.
Contrary to popular belief, the Revan novel does reference a lot of Knights of the Old Republic too. Mass Shadow Generator, looking for the mask, Atris.
Well, kinda. I'll get into specifics for that when we get to part 2, because that's actually where I got something to mention about that. So yeah. So yeah, it does mention KOTOR 2, but some aspects. Anyway, so yeah, it mentions Atris and yeah, Atris talks to Revan, have some discussion, and then Atris just leaves Revan alone, and Revan's pondering about Mitra having lost the Force and stuff. So yeah, it was some interesting stuff. So yeah. And then, of course, from there he goes to Canderous, go for the mask in Rakia, etc., etc. So there is that, and yeah. Anything else to mention part 1, guys?
Nope.
Okay,
No.
so shall we get to part 2?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, well, Harbinger, you can do the honors.
Okay. So part 2, we still keep following Scourge during his own story arc as well as his interactions with Revan. But in Revan's place, we get the Jedi Exile, which is the protagonist from KOTOR 2. And we see her journey in trying to find Revan. It starts when she finds Bastila, and, she tells Mitra about where Revan went. Mitra eventually goes to Natima. She's able to find the information that she needs as well to get to where the true Sith are located, which is Romankas. She manages to infiltrate the society there, and through some somewhat shady dealing, she's able to get information on the Sith Lord who captured Revan, because that's something that Tree recorded. He was on the ship when it happened, but he recorded Scourge taken. And through that, Mitra is able to find Scourge and arrange a meeting. Eventually, they do meet and they do talk and are able to reach somewhat of a consensus of, okay, I'll get you to Revan, but you can't just go in, you have to pretend and shit. Unfortunately, for pretty much everyone, once they're able to free themselves from Aris, escape the stronghold, Revan killing Aris, their battle against the Emperor doesn't go well. Tetra is destroyed, Mitra is killed, and Revan is in prison. Now, the reason that I'm, skipping to that, there's this whole story of them blaming, revealing Nara's involvement in the conspiracy to kill the Emperor. There's some pretty cool scenes with Scourge manipulating the Emperor into, going after Naris so that they have a good excuse to get Revan out of there while the chaos is happening. But I do believe that we need to discuss about the ending, because even as someone who does enjoy the novel, I do think it's pretty rushed in a lot of ways, and I don't have a problem with it setting up a storyline for SWTOR necessarily, because the other tie-in book, Deceived, it also does that, and even Fatal Alliance to an extent. The Fatal Alliance is a bit weird because SWTOR kind of ignores that book, but, however, the problem is that Deceived is very subtle about the way, the Malgus Rebellion arc, which is currently on one of the ongoing arcs, Technically, it's his second rebellion. He does rebel in the original game too, but he still wants to rebel against the Emperor, and that's something that starts in Deceived, and that the book does set up. But Revan is obviously not subtle at all. I just described the ending, but I omitted a key factor. Why did Scourge betray everyone? Because he had a vision, and that vision is of a character in SWTOR called the Hero of Titan, and that's the character is going to be responsible for defeating the Emperor during the vanilla game. So that's the reason he did it. And obviously, even as someone who's probably not as huge into KOTOR, from a narrative standpoint, that is disappointing, because you have all this build-up, all for nothing. And, if a book has a tragic ending, it doesn't mean necessarily it's bad, but when all the build-up was essentially just build-up for another story, it does, make the whole experience less pleasurable as a reader. And again, I'm speaking from someone who doesn't necessarily hate the ending, but I do think it has a lot of issues because of its lack of subtlety of setting up that story arc for SWTOR. And again, I don't think it's necessarily bad for doing that. I just think it could have been done in a more subtle way that was still somewhat satisfying to people who aren't necessarily interested in playing the game and, getting that that arc, playing through the Jedi Knight story. And obviously, there's the added problem of, okay, this isn't just a book about original SWTOR characters like Deceived is or Fatal Alliance. It's a book that's also meant to be a closure to Knights of the Old Republic. And if that closure isn't there, it does make the reader even more frustrating because it's of all these factors I mentioned.
Anything else to mention?
Not right now. I think I tackled the elephant in the room.
Anyway, so before I get into my criticisms with this part, okay, so Dolan, do you want to go first or shall I go first?
You see, the reason why this book is essentially a setup, it has to be because it's a tie-in. You can't expect some kind of a closure without to everything, so because it's not meant to. You can't do that with a tie-in. The whole purpose of the book was intentionally designed in a way to set up the video game. So, I mean, I get it. The people who were disappointed that this was nothing more than a setup, but that's what it was supposed to do.
I think they probably wanted the setup to not be so in their face, wanted to make it more subtle. That's probably what they wanted. So
Yeah.
maybe it could have been done more subtly. Who knows on that? So there is that.
I think it possibly could have been. Whether or not it would have also been satisfying is another question. But I do think, to mention Deceived again, it pretty much sets up the Malgus Rebellion arc. And once you play the game and you reread the novel again, you go, "Holy shit! It was right there all along." But once you on your first time reading it, especially if you don't know anything about the game, you might not realize that it's setting up a story arc. You might think it's giving us a hint, but it's not an actual setup.
Mm.
And another thing I think some people seems to fail to understand is this is not Knights of the Old Republic 3. This is a tie-in for the Old Republic MMO.
It's a tie-in, but yet it is trying to fill in the story gaps that Knights of the Old Republic 3 would have. So in a way, kind of is a continuation of course 1 and 2, but it's also a tie-in to SWTOR, so it's kind of both.
It's in a tricky spot precisely because of that. At the same time, it's a tie-in to SWTOR. It's trying to be in book form what KOTOR 3 would have been. The story of, okay, what happened to these characters, what were they doing, and that.
Mm-hmm.
The main purpose is a tie-in, and it has to set up the main product. So for that, I think it fulfilled its purpose.
Yeah, in a way it did. So there is that. Anything else you want to mention, no one, before I bring my own piece?
No.
Okay, so my piece. Okay, so part 2. It starts alright, but the moment we get to Roman Cause is where things get off the rails in my end, or at least like rubs me the wrong way. So first off, I had this strong thought in my mind that every time Mitra was like trying to think of like either comparisons of force powers between Sith Lords or previous experiences or some big events that were affected by the Force, like a big Force user draining the shit out of the Force. It's like for some reason she just like never thought once, hey, maybe this is similar to what Darth Nihilus, who I already faced before, did. It's like this book, for some reason, just did not wanted to mention Darth Nihilus and Darth Sion. Like, it just never bothered to mention them whatsoever. It's like ignores them. Like, it mentions Traya like 2 times, but Sion and Nihilus, no mentions whatsoever. And there's several times that Nihilus could have easily been mentioned, even if it was a comparison. Like, for example, when Vitiate's powers are described as, or the ritual that pretty much that he did in Atima, which pretty much made it so that he gets immortality by pretty much draining the entire force of the planet. That's something that Nihilus, well, not necessarily in a ritual, but he definitely did some similar results ends with Force draining the shit out of the entire planet of Qatar, which is the Miraluka homeworld. And for some reason, Mitra does not compare Nihilus to Tenebrae in some way. Like, it's weird. Like, it's weird that she just does not seem to like want to make those comparisons. She instead compares it to Malachor 5 when she sees what happened to Natima, which I don't think it's necessarily a good comparison because Malachor 5 was not stripped out of the Force. It was just like wounded with the events of what happened. So I don't think it's not that good of a comparison in there. And when she hears of the powers of Bishit pretty much being able to not only transfer his essence, but also using all sorts of Force training and stuff, she at first is like not really possible to believe it, which I'm like, hey, you face a Sith Lord that only lives by consuming planets, and he barely has any body whatsoever. It's like a mask and a robe. So how come you think it's kind of impossible for it to happen? It's like she didn't seem to want to believe the powers of Bishit at first until people explain it more in detail, which I'm just like it was weird seeing that in regards to Mitra's mindset.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention, because I do remember a dialogue with Kreia in Quarter 2, and like my friend often mentions that dialogue in context to Nihilus. One of the things that made Kreia fear Nihilus was what if he grew as proficient in his natural Force drain as the Sith Lords of old in their rituals to drain planets. I think there's some dialogue that pretty much hints that the Sith Lords of old had these rituals to strip life of entire planets, and one of the reasons Kreia fears Nihilus is, what if he grows to that level of proficiency? So, for Mitra to think it's impossible for Tenebrae to have that, unless in this timeline she somehow never had this conversation with Kreia, or if I'm strongly misremembering it. But, like, I do think even if she had forgotten the ancient Sith lore, she could have easily made comparisons to Nihilus as well, and I think it would have been interesting because Nihilus is essentially like a beast in a way. Like, he's more bestial than cold rational thinking the way Tenebrae is. So like Tenebrae is consciously choosing to go that route, whereas Nihilus is just his nature at that point, just his nature to need to feed on life, to try to satiate his hunger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but here's the thing I have to say is like even with that comparison, I kind of understand why Mitra would think it's impossible because Nihilus in the KOTOR 2 game consumed Force sensitives, specifically Jedi. But what Bishit does is a whole different level of insanity because he drains insects, plants, every single living thing to the point the entire planet feels like this weird, unnatural thing where the Force itself doesn't exist.
Nihilus did that to Qatar. It's referencing KOTOR 2 that Nihilus did that to the Qatar planet. He drained the entire planet of its Force.
Yeah.
No. It's a totally different thing because if you actually read the book, it's a different scale. Every single living life form, every single. Nihilus did not do that.
He did. The game KOTOR 2 typically has Kreia and Bisa say the entire planet was drained and it was Nihilus. It says.
The biggest difference I would say is that Nihilus didn't left Qatar without the Force, as far as I know. But he did drain, as far as I remember, he did drain all life in Qatar. It was pretty much lifeless after he got done eating.
Yeah, it was lifeless, barren.
Maybe that's the case, but he didn't drain the entire planet devoid of anything. To the point, like, the game never describes the planets where Bishit drained as some kind of a weird, unnatural thing to the point that the Force itself is like this weird, gray, foggy thing, like nothing could be sensed. So Bishit's level of draining through ritual is way more powerful than what Nihilus ever did during his entire Sith career.
Even
It's not
if
even comparable.
even if what Vitiate did was a lot stronger than what Nihilus did, what Nihilus did in Qatar is in a way can still drive in some comparison in Mitra's mind, whereas compared to Malachor 5, because Malachor 5 does not really make sense that Mitra would compare that planet to what happened in Natima, because Malachor 5 was not really dead of life. It still had some monsters, still had the Force. There were still some, the Sith, of course, and the Academy were there. Whereas Qatar was pretty much just completely devoid of life. Maybe it still has some aspects of the Force, but it was like devoid of life. So that still brings in the stronger comparison compared to Malachor 5. So that's why when me and Harbinger say that it's weird that Mitra, for some reason, does not say, this kind of sounds like what Visas and Kreia told me in regards to Qatar no longer having any life, having it being completely drained. Like, it would have been a simple mention of it, but for some reason it didn't happen in this book. Like,
Maybe this is just my theory. Maybe Mitra herself thought this, like, even Nihilus couldn't do this.
in a way, no, I don't think he would necessarily on the scale of what Vitiate does, but I'd say at least it would be in some way comparable. Maybe not on the same scale, but in some way it could draw some comparison. So that's
The argument was about why she didn't make the comparison. That makes sense, but if someone were to say that, why would a Mitra believe that it would be impossible to drain every single force-related thing from the planet? Well, I would buy that because Nihilus didn't do that.
at least not to how Vitiate does it.
Yeah.
So at least not on that level. So there is that. But anyway, so you already mentioned though in your criticism of how this book doesn't mention Karf, well, not mentioning Nihilus and Scion, I think that's probably worse, considering that only mentions Treya, but those other two for some reason no, so that's odd. And that's actually another thing, so the other big criticism of this book is that it does not whatsoever mention the main events of KOTOR 2. Yes, it mentions Malachor 5, though I mention it from the Mandalorian Wars perspective. As for the KOTOR 2 events themselves, as in what happened in the game itself, no mentions of it whatsoever.
Yeah, it only gives a paragraph about Mitra taking down Kreia. And that's one of the things that I dislike about it, because I know Drew hadn't played KOTOR 2. I'm not sure if he has now, but he hadn't played KOTOR 2 when he wrote the book.
Oh.
But still, it would have been nice to have some kind of reference to the other main events, or at least to the companions, because I keep wondering, what happened to the KOTOR 2 companions? Where are they? Like, all we have to go on really are the visions that, spoilers for KOTOR 2, at the end, Kreia does, tell you some visions she had of your companions, and obviously, if we go light side, we can use that as a way. Okay, this is what happened to them. But I think it would be nice of the novel at least mention something about them, because it's especially about Visas and Adam. Because I really like them.
Part 2 of the novel is about a year, not even a full year after Knights of the Old Republic 2,
Yeah,
and
full year.
certain traits of members are actually explained in the visual dictionaries. So there's that.
I just searched, and apparently sources where characters like Aton and Bisa show up, apparently it seems that their final page seem to be mentioned in the SWTOR game itself, and some of the later essential guides. So I think, but SWTOR in particular seems to be the one. But this book does not have them. So in order to get what happened to, say Aton, Visas, or the others, you pretty much have to play SWTOR, or at least take a look at the specific log or whatever it is that has that info. So
I mean, it's not even been a full year since KOTOR 2. I mean, the part 2. And then expecting what happened to them. I don't really know about that. Did they even fully rebuild the Jedi Order at this point?
no idea. As far as I can't really tell that. Though I don't think the book even mentions that. Now I think about it. I know Bastard was alive with the son, That I know, but
I mean, the epilogue does mention that Bastila is still the master of the new built Jedi Order, and does state that there is some kind of a Jedi Order.
Yeah, she does rejoin the Order later, and in one of the shorter storylines, we actually get to meet a holocron of her.
I guess there is that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just looking, and yeah, it seems that if you want to get the final fates of the Quarter 2 companions, you have to play SWTOR and get the Codex entry. And apparently, and also some sort of a short story called the Cartel Market. Or, no, the in-game store seems to be the one that has that info, which is interesting. But yeah, so SWTOR has the final fates of those. Not the Revan book, though supposedly Beodor was kind of mentioned in the Revan book, but indirectly, so...
Theodore's entire fate is a result of the game being unfinished,
Oh,
so his
there's
fate
that,
is still unknown.
There is that, yeah. So there's that. So yeah, there's that issue of this book that it does not whatsoever mention the main events of Quarter 2 or even the final fates of your companions.
Doesn't mention KOTOR 2, but I don't think it's a reason why anyone could criticize the thing for being bad. I mean,
Okay,
it doesn't really contradict something or try to deconstruct KOTOR 2 in a way to say it's bad or something.
That's
So,
where I was getting. So my next criticism seems in regards to the handling of Mitra Surik and even a bit of Revan. Okay, so I'll go first with Revan before I get to Mitra, because Mitra's like a 2-3 issue. So Revan. Okay, so Revan. So we get revealed in this book what actually happened to what led him and Malak fall into the dark side. And it pretty much turns out that it was that basically Revan and Malak, they basically they found Bishiet and Drummond Kaas. They confronted him head on, and Bishiet just used the Force to pretty much dominate their minds, turn them into his puppets to do his bidding, and then send them back to the Republic to wipe them out, acting as some sort of a vanguard of Bishiet's invasion. Then Revan and Malak, for somehow in their minds, they thought that the order of conquering the galaxy or taking down the Republic came from themselves. So that's how they thought mentally that they were pretty much now Sith Lords and are going to pretty much just conquer the galaxy. Like they twisted Vitiate's order into one of their own, into thinking that now they're gonna like conquer the galaxy. So that's what happened. So my issue with this is that aside from the fact that Knights of the Republic 1 makes no mention or hints whatsoever that this is how the dark side went,
Actually,
now, aside from that, it also severely lessens their fall to the dark side, going from Revan and Malak pretty much doing their falling through their own selfish choices, to their own path to achieve power. No, it's more of somebody else now forced them down the dark side into doing his own bidding, and they twist it in their minds and they do it.
no. Let me get back to the part. So the novel doesn't actually say it was Bishop who mind controlled Malik and Revan to turn to the dark side. Revan just says this. The Emperor controlled their minds to attack the Republic and be his puppets to do his bidding. It never says the Emperor turned them to the dark side. Not a single paragraph says that.
One thing that I would like to bring up, not necessarily from the novel, but from the encyclopedia, is that it does try to reconcile the retcons with the Quarter 2 version a little bit by saying that, okay, Revan was already on the path to the dark side. He and Malik were already changed. It's just that Vitiate pretty much, turned them into a Sith and turned them into his puppets, and then they break free, like the novel says. Like the novel says, they break free and then they do that thing where they think the order came from them.
And as for your question, Nolan, actually, yes, the book does say that they turn to the dark side. So let me read the entire passage. So, true, but we didn't know that at the time, Revan explained. We were being led into a trap. The Emperor wanted us to come to him. When we got to his throne room, he was ready and waiting. His voice dropped low. We underestimated his power. When we confronted him, he didn't even have to fight us. Instead, he broke our wills, he dominated our minds, turning us into puppets to do his bidding. He sent us back to the Republic as the vanguard of his invasion with instructions to report back when all resistance was crushed. But though we had underestimated the Emperor's power, he underestimated us as well. Our wills were stronger than he thought, our minds twisted and perverted his instructions until we thought we were acting on our own accord. Malak and I were turned to the dark side, but in doing so, we found the strength to block out all memory of the Sith and the Emperor, partially freeing us from his control. So, yeah, he pretty much says they were turned to the dark side there.
Oh, it says like they turned to the dark side, but it says that the Emperor underestimated them, and then he. No, wait a second.
But
The Emperor dominated their minds to attack the Republic. It doesn't really literally say that he turned them to the dark side. It was after that. So it could actually work like this. While Revan and Malak were turned puppets to do Emperor's bidding, they turned to the dark side as a result of that. The only mind control thing that is mentioned, what I see, is they were ordered by Bishop to attack the Republic, not turning to the dark side. I think turning to the dark side was a result of attacking the natural result by attacking the Republic.
Then Mitra says, but you still called yourself Sith. You still attacked the Republic and brought it to the verge of collapse before the Jedi captured you. And even after you stopped Malak, the Republic was still as vulnerable as it's ever been. Why didn't the Emperor just invade then? And the Revan says he didn't know what had happened. He was waiting for us to report back. We heard nothing. He assumed we had failed. He returned to his control plans, slowly and carefully building.
Here's the thing. The only mind control thing. You could argue that Revan attacking the Republic, you could say attacking the Republic under the mind control of Bishop is the problem. But saying that he mind controlled them to turn to the dark side is where I find that to be questionable, because the book doesn't say that. The book said the Emperor ordered them to attack the Republic, not turn them to the dark side.
Well, the book also makes it clear that Revan and Malak were going to pretty much stop the Emperor from pretty much invading the Republic. And the book never says before that they started their path to the dark side. Like, it literally strongly implies that it started when Bishop dominated their minds. There's not a single part in the book that says that their journey to the dark side started before. It doesn't say it. It doesn't even mention how Revan and Malak were pretty much going after the 5 star map and then went to Starforge and pretty much were there. Hell, it doesn't even mention that leading up to this passage of dealing with Bishop. Not even that. So in this case, yeah, the book is strongly implying that, yeah, their fall to the dark side started here in Drummond Cos.
You might argue that the book is implying that Bishop turned them to the dark side, but that's debatable. The only thing that is 100% true is Bishop controlled them to attack the Republic, so that's up for debate.
So, in my thoughts, okay, even if Revan and Malak had started their dark side path before meeting Bishop, I just think it was not a good idea whatsoever to have Bishop be a key factor for the turn to the dark side, because it pretty much just changes a good chunk of it, because there was no hints whatsoever in Quarter 1 that...
It does say something like something in the unknown regions corrupted Revan and Malak.
Yeah, and it was pretty much hinted that, at least in Quarter 1, that it was the Starforge, because it's essentially a dark side feedback loop. So the more you use it, the more dark you get.
Yeah,
but here's the thing you guys seem to fail to understand. Freya didn't really know who Revan was. Even the Jedi Masters didn't know who Revan was. This is why I think it's better, because all of them thought they knew who Revan was, but the real Revan isn't like that. So it just gives a more layer for me, because all those masters and Kreia, Master Dorak, Bandar, they thought they knew Revan so well, but the truth is, they never knew what really happened to Revan.
There's that, but then
Their
also
arrogance.
but also the essential guides make no mention whatsoever of the Sith Empire pretty much being a factor for Revan's and Mal's fall to the
Here's the
dark
thing
side.
with the essential guides. The essential guide is written from an in-universe perspective of people in-universe perspective of the history. Now, why they wouldn't have this historical information, I don't know why they wouldn't have it, but they could have their own interpretation or their own views, so it could not always 100% match. It's an in-universe guide after all.
There is that, but then makes you wonder, like, how is it there's no records of it? Like, Revan even shows up until 3600 BBY something Harbinger in the Soldier game. Like, I don't know if it's in ghost form or in like eternal life form, whatever.
After the ending, he gets imprisoned. I forgot to mention that he gets imprisoned in stasis. So you free him from the stasis.
Okay.
And this, kids, is the reason you don't write encyclopedias from an in-universe perspective.
Well, there is that. But even excluding the encyclopedias pre-2011 that don't have this info, the Essential Guide to Warfare failed to mention this, or even the Book of the Sith. Both of them don't mention whatsoever that the true fall of Revan and Malak. Like, neither one of them do. And like, it's just in this book where this info of Vitiate overtaking Revan and Malak's minds and they pretty much been sent out. Like, it's only in this book and the Essential Reader's Companion. Like, those are the only sources. All of the others say that Revan and Malak, the reason why they fell to the dark side is because they started their path to find the Star Forge, and the more and more they were going, the more they were falling down. And when the time they get to the Star Forge, that's when they pretty much just fully convince themselves, yeah, we got the power, let's conquer the galaxy, go.
I mean, it doesn't really say anything about that. The only thing that is pretty clear is Vitiate is not. It doesn't really say that Vitiate. It's more up to debate whether Vitiate is responsible for their fall to the dark side. The only thing that is clear in the book, and let me reiterate this, is them invading the Republic. That part, invade the Republic. That part is 100% Vitiate manipulating, mind controlling Revan and Malak. Turn to the dark side part, no. That is up to debate. You can argue that forever, but...
Well, think about it. If Revan and Malak had never gone to Vitiate, do you think they would have actually fallen to the dark side?
But here's the thing. Why would they go to find Vitiate? Why would they find Sith relics? The reason why they find Vitiate in the first place is because they're finding Sith-related things in the first place, weren't they? Right?
Only the Sark.
Why would they look for Sith-related artifacts or relics? Because they were already interested in the dark side from the beginning.
There is that. But I just wish that the Star Forge would have been the tipping point where, yeah, they go and conquer the galaxy. Instead of Bishop pretty much like making them go like, 5-10 steps forward into the dark side, like pretty much accelerating it. Maybe he wasn't the full catalyst, but he accelerated. That much is clear.
That is clear, but you gotta also remember the part why they even decided to look for Bishop, Nadima, and all this in the first place, because they were already interested in Sith-related history, and they were already partially in the path of the dark side to begin with. They will not be looking for Sith-related things in the first place if they're not really interested in the dark side.
Well, there is that, but yeah, so when they truly fell to the dark side, that definitely changed. Originally, it was assumed to be the Star Forge. Now, no, it turns out it's Vitiate. So it's info that clashes with old info, and even new info to some extent. So
I was just going to say, it's kind of interesting how pretty much each game has their own, reason for Revan falling to the dark. Quarter 1 has the Star Forge, Quarter 2 has, just the very nature of war corrupting him, and Soto has Vitiate.
Yeah, I don't remember Coda 2 actually going in detail of his fall to the dark side. Did it actually go?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
If you talk with Kreia, there are some dialogues that she does mention, Revan fell because of the Mandalorian's wars. And then he found, the Trails Academy where he learned the Sith teaching. That's the Quarter 2 explanation, as far as I remember.
Oh yeah, I think the Trey Academy definitely wasn't.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is, it's not just the SWTOR and the Revan Noble doing this. It's like Chris Avalon is did try to make his own version. It's not just Drew Karpyshyn and BioWare people doing it to confuse the hell out of people. Obsidian and Chris Avalon are also as responsible too.
Well, and then it makes you wonder, why didn't just Carpation just stick with what was in Quarter 1 and that's it? Like why did he have to make another version of it?
Maybe in his own mind he thought he was incorporating KOTOR 2 elements in with his own Knights of the Old Republic and ended up annoying multiple people in the progress. So the conclusion we get here, boys, is you can't satisfy anyone.
I think it's also an issue of, you have to like tie in this big new villain in the existing lore somewhere. So, where could you possibly tie him he's the cause of Revan's fall. He's that powerful, essentially. Yeah, and obviously that, pissed a lot of people, and I understand that. I wasn't that surprised when it happened because, again, I had already played SWTOR. I had already met Revan in SWTOR, so I knew the whole story. So I was like, oh, this is that moment. So it didn't piss me off because I was already okay. I know this is gonna happen anyway. And to corroborate to your point, the SWTOR encyclopedia also says that he pretty much broke free of Vicious control and was just doing his own thing. Kind of tries to incorporate these different versions of his fall.
But the novel does say that Revan did twist the orders of Bishit and decides to change the purpose of attacking the Republic. Now, Bishit's purpose is to attack the Republic so that it could actually be so weakened so that when Revan and Malak eventually reports back, the true Sith could invade the old Republic and destroy it. But Revan's purpose is not the same. Revan decides to attack the Republic for the purpose of replacing the government with his own version of the Sith so that he could prepare the entire galaxy to fight against the true Sith. So even with that, it's still consistent with the purpose Revan tried to do in KOTOR 2. To fight against a greater evil, to protect the Republic against Bishit, and his purpose is still consistent.
It seems to be consistent with Quarter 2, but not Quarter 1. So I guess that is the games pretty much trying to do their own versions, and the book decided to, I guess, take elements from both and try and make its own. So there is that.
And again, I don't like the whole plot with KOTOR 2 trying to say that Revan became this great military or leader to protect the galaxy. He tried to turn his followers to the dark side or convert them in order to fight against a greater evil. Like, I didn't like that. Some people say that's more complex and makes Revan interesting. But the reason why I like Revan is that the whole part of KOTOR's story is this evil man trying to redeem himself by saving the galaxy. And guess what? According to KOTOR 2, it says like Revan wasn't really evil to begin with. That ruins my viewing of Revan's quote-unquote redemption, because Revan wasn't really evil to begin with.
I don't know about that, about him not being evil, because obviously even if he was doing stuff believing he was doing the right thing, it was still some evil acts, so he still would be evil to some extent. So I guess that definitely, yeah, that part of KOTOR 2 saying he was
I would
evil.
say it lessens his redemption,
It
because
does.
he wasn't really evil.
I guess in a way, yeah. So there is that. Anyway, so Revan's fall to the dark side, yeah. So it's some version of this book. So this is the other two. So there is that. So while editing, I discovered that the SWTOR version of Revan and Malak's fall to the dark side has a direct contradiction with KOTOR 1's version of their fall to the dark side, which was originally the canon version of their corruption, and it involves the order of events in regards to when they started searching for the Starforge. So SWTOR says that Revan and Malak went looking for the Starforge right after Bishit had ordered them to do so, right after they broke free from Bishit's mind control and fell to the dark side. However, Knights of the Old Republic 1 has a flashback vision showcasing both Revan and Malak investigating the ruins of Dantooine to find the star map. And in the vision, they not only have yet to fully fall to the dark side, but they are still part of the Jedi Order, as confirmed by Malak in the vision, where he says that if they continue deep into the temple, the Jedi Order would certainly cast them out. This is definitely an issue, as an entire flashback scene from KOTOR 1 has been retconned by SWTOR, and as of right now, there is no explanation or information to explain this discrepancy, other than SWTOR's version of Revan and Malak's fall to the dark side being the canonical version now. Anyway, back to the video. So there's that issue. Now, next big issue, and this is definitely where the KOTOR 2 fans definitely get their anger off, is in regards to the handling of Mitra Surik, aka the Jedi Exile from KOTOR 2. So the way she's handled in this book, so the first thing that we already mentioned, that she doesn't seem to remember much about Nihilus and Cyan, so on, there's that. But then there's this one part in where basically Mitra and Scorch are going to get Revan out, but they pretty much get confronted with Nihilus. And Mitra and Scorch, they're trying to fight together against Nihilus. They're unable to do it. Mitra barely even does anything to Nihilus. Scorch does a little bit, but not that much. And then Revan, when he sees his mask from his Mandalorian Wars days and Darth Revan days, he somehow gets all of his memories back and his full powers back, and manages to easily beat Darth Nihilus with some quick force lightning and So, quick questions. First, what the hell is up with this Deus Ex Machina? How the fuck, just by looking at the mask, you're gonna get all your memories and force powers back? Especially since Revan in here, he was for 3 to 4 years drugged and weakened from torture. I don't know how the hell he got his full strength back just by remembering his past. So that's one. And number two, you're telling me the Jedi Exile, the one that's a wound in the Force, that was deemed too dangerous to have any sort of Force connection, according to the Jedi Council, and was able to beat the Sith Triumvirate, did so freaking poorly against Darth Nihilus, while Revan, just by remembering himself, he pretty much was able to take Darth Nihilus easily. How is it that Mitra's power level and, I guess, lightsaber skills or whatever, her power was so freaking low compared to what she was in KOTOR 2 and compared to Revan's? What the hell was up with that?
The thing you're assuming is Nihilus to be weak in the first place compared to Mitra.
I don't think she's weak, but Mitra didn't do much, so she's probably strong. But then Revan comes here, and just by looking at his mask, he manages to get all of his force powers back, his memories, and easily beats Nihilus. Nothing. Just a force lightning or something he did with the force, and just beats her easily. Effortlessly. He didn't even sweat. How the hell is that possible? Mitra's supposed to be stronger than Revan. And yet, for some reason, Revan manages to beat her with 4 years of torture and drugs in his mind, and yet he manages to do it just by remembering who he is. How the hell does that go?
This was a video game. You might actually use force lightning.
I'm not going by gameplay, because I know gameplay is not. No, I'm going by what the characters were saying. The Jedi Council in KOTOR 2 deemed the Exile to be so powerful, to be such a danger for her to have her force connection, that they were going to separate. So if they're going to go to that sort of lengths to sever her force connections, because she's way more powerful and dangerous than it should be. So if her power level is so that strong, then she should have been at least comparable to Revan. But no, she's weaker than Revan. How the fuck is that possible? That makes no sense. And not to mention, she beat Sion and Traya single-handedly. Revan only beat Malak, as far as I know. So there's that too. How is it that the Exile is weaker than Revan here? How is that possible?
Technically, Mitra did not beat Sion. Sion gave up. If Sion actually wanted to keep going and going and going, that would be a different thing. Mitra convinced Sion to give up. It's not, she didn't really defeat him, if you know what I'm talking about.
There had to be a reason for Sion to giving up. Mitra was able to pretty much hold her own. But regardless, it is clear this book is saying Mitra's weaker, Revan's stronger. So that is very clear here with how Revan was able to easily take down Nihilus, while Mitra couldn't do shit. So there is that. And then the next feat that happens in regards to Mitra is when they're dealing with the Emperor and his forces. So basically, when Revan is able to take on the Emperor, even doing a bit of damage to him, like they actually fight and stuff. And and Scorch are gonna get ready to fight the Emperor, but instead of actually fighting him, no, Scorch literally beheads Mitra, and she pretty much just dies right there on the spot, like that.
Yeah, she's stabbed.
Like that is one of the lamest deaths ever. Like she didn't even get a chance to face the not even an attack, nothing.
That part. I mean, I didn't necessarily hate the fact that Scorch killed Mitra because I understand why Scorch did that.
I
because
understand
it does seem
too.
logical.
Like I'm not saying it doesn't make any sense logically for Scorch to do it. Like I just think Karpyshyn
it's just not satisfying. There's no just.
And it's even worse when you see that Revan was able to at least go a few blows with the Emperor. Even T3 was able to do something against the Emperor. Like he threw some freaking flamethrowers and stuff. Mitra couldn't do anything against the Emperor. Not even throwing the lightsaber or using some nothing. She literally was just taken down in the fight in the flash. Like nothing. I don't mind if she dies here, but she should have at least gone down a better way instead of how it went.
I think it would have been interesting if the Emperor had tried to drain her and then ran into the same issue as Nihilus did. Like, wait a second, I can drain you. Why? What are you?
Yeah, that actually would have been an interesting way to do it. Like, yeah, there should have been a better way to handle Mitra's death than how it was. It literally was just not satisfying, and it was just a very lame death for Mitra. It was just terrible.
Some people just hate Scorch in general and thought he was an idiot for killing Mitra and betraying Revan.
No, I don't think he's an idiot. No, I don't think he's an idiot. I think his arc makes sense, and and seeing how it went, it makes sense. So I don't have any issues with Scorch. I just have an issue with how Mitra was portrayed in this book towards her power and her death. So, which was not satisfying at all.
I kind of understand because Malachor 5 was destroyed at the end, so the whole 1 and the 4th and blah 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 stuff, like, actually. And there's like some kind of more weird reasons. There's like a year gap between Cold War 2 and the part of Revan novel, so who knows what happened between those events. That is not explained.
It's not
like what happened between that.
Well, here's the thing: if something happened that made Mitra so much weaker, the book should be obligated to say it. Because the fact that it doesn't mention it whatsoever, it's just gonna make the reader that has played both KOTOR games is gonna assume Mitra is stronger than Revan. It's gonna go there by default. And I played both Knights of the Old Republic games in the last few weeks in preparation for this book. So, yes, going with that mindset, yes, I fully got with the mindset that, Mitra is stronger than Revan. She is stronger. So the way she was handled here was, like, poorly. Almost like Karpyshyn wanted to favor Revan more, which I guess in a way makes sense because it's his character. So, but the way Mitra was handled here in the last part was just not good at all. And now I see why KOTOR 2 fans dislike the book a lot. Aside from the lack of mentioning the main events and even certain characters or conclusions to them, the handling of the exile was just terrible. It was not good at all. So, from those issues, I fully understand the KOTOR 2 criticisms from the KOTOR 2 fans. So, now, does this fully ruin the book? Not entirely. Does kind of ruin the ending to some extent, but the whole book is still a good book. It's not a bad one. So the criticism of the people saying that this book sucks, is the worst thing ever, this completely ruins it, no, I think that definitely is over-exaggerated. Like that part, that's exaggerated. So but the main issues that KOTOR 2 fans have in regards to the handling of Mitra, the lack of the main events mentions, and the conclusions to the characters, I agree with those. It's true. So that's where I basically am with in regards to the main issues with this book. So those are my issues. Guys, got anything else to say on part 2?
Yeah, I think I said what I pretty much wanted to say, especially in regards to the ending not being subtle about being a setup, and some suggestions on how the fight with Canberra could have been improved. It would be nice to see how Mitra's status as a Force One could have affected combat, possibly.
But one thing I don't know how to feel, which I like and dislike at the same time, is like the description of Scourge, is because Scourge isn't really a side character. As much as he's also the main character of this novel. What do you guys think about that?
The well, I don't.
I
It's possible.
I think Gorge, Revan, and Metro are kind of like co-protagonists because we do follow them around a lot. Especially Scourge. We pretty much see his entire arc. Like he's not a secondary character like Sasho or which is Naris, pretty much right hand man or Commander Orgo or something, which is her security chief. Like it's not like these characters that they come and go. Like Gorge is to be one of the protagonists. It's kind of like a trio of protagonists.
Oh,
For
while Scourge is an interesting character and equally as much of a main character, I find it weird that it's a tie-in book after all, but I could understand some people saying that they wanted to see more Revan as the main character and sharing the presence with Scourge as this another main character would make them upset because they primarily really wanted Revan as the main character and Scourge is in the way. I mean, personally, for me, Scourge's existence wasn't bad. He was like the arbiter, and his story was equally as interesting as the story Revan got. But for the love of God, seriously, this thing doesn't even try to hide the fact that it's a tie-in to the main product, and Scourge has to be this important character so that he appears in the Jedi Knight storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's the one who pretty much helps you because for the Jedi Knight storyline, you also get dominated by V-shit and you end up falling to the dark side if you haven't already due to your own choices, and you're able to break free through your master. The first ghost of your master breaks you free from that control, and Scourge pretty much helps you bail out of the Emperor space station and then starts aiding you in stopping the Emperor's plans because you're the person he met in his vision and yada yada.
okay. So
And because this is a tie-in novel, we don't get a proper closure because, well, wait for the video game. So, essentially people waited like, how many years since Knights of the Old Republic? Like 7 years since the Knights of the Old Republic 2 to get a closure, and then comes the book saying, hey, wait for another day so you get the closure from the main MMO. But the MMO doesn't get the closure and introduces more expansion packs. So there is no closure. What is this?
well, this is one that
There,
definitely space.
there is actually closure on that because they closed that a few years ago. But I do get what you mean, especially in regards to because I think the Revan novel came out in 2011, which was 7 years, like you mentioned, after Culture 2. So okay, I waited 7 years for an answer, and now I have to play this game, which might not even be a game that interests me, to get the answer to the question that was supposed to be my answer. So yeah.
The Emperor himself doesn't even die in the main product because it's like one of his boys. Now, it's not really a contradiction because Scourge's vision says like the Jedi Knight defeated the Emperor, not killed him. So it's not necessarily a contradiction, but still.
And even if he did actually kill him, well, guess what? The Emperor likes to transfer his essence from body to body, so there's that too.
Yeah, it took a lot of years to kill him. His final death was only in 2020 in the Echoes of Oblivion.
Yeah, so basically, the Vicious is just one of those really big monsters that just don't wish to die. So
Yeah, but it still does. I still find it consistent with the great evil that is incomprehensible.
in a way, Bishit's power is incomprehensible by some, especially reading what he can do and stuff. So yeah, I can in some way see why his powers may be just way too much for some to even think about. So
In some other perspective, I find that the novel gives too much information about Bishop. It explains Bishi's like originated from Nadima. His mother actually cheated on his father with the Sith King or something, right?
So his father was Lord Dramath, who was the governor of the planet, and his stepfather and his mother were just random farmers. Dramath had an affair with mom. You know, he did find out later that Tenebr existed and told the woman to pretty much drown the child. You know, he says that in sort of like, your mother should have obeyed my orders and drowned you when she had a chance or something like that. But she didn't do that, and now we're stuck with an intergalactic evil for almost 2,000 years.
Yeah, so I mean, it essentially explains the whole history of Bishop, Tenebri, Valkorian, whatever the hell you want to call him. The reference, right?
There's that.
And yeah, so essentially, since you know so much about Bishop, like, what's the point of playing the video game? To know more about him.
Other than to see his final fate and fate of others. So, I guess there is that. So I myself, reading this book, I do think that maybe it is slightly in your face a tie into SWTOR, but I didn't have too much issue with it. I already mentioned my bigger issues, so I don't think I have much more to say on that. Do you guys got anything else to say on part 2?
Nope.
Okay, then shall we get to the EU connections that this book offers?
Yeah.
Okay, so right off the bat, obvious one, it's in the title of the book. It's the Old Republic, the MMORPG. Like, that is so obvious.
And let's see, the golden age of the Sith and the fall of the Sith Empire.
Yeah.
With Nagasato, Ludo Crash,
Marka Ragnos. Yeah, Tales of the Jedi is pretty much referenced here, definitely. So there is that. Harbinger, what do you got in terms of EU connections that this book has, outside of SWTOR, because SWTOR is pretty obvious?
You guys already mentioned the big ones to me, which are Tales of Jedi, Obligator. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something, but not coming up with anything that isn't already obvious.
I think it also referenced that the KOTOR issue, where Revan picks up the mask of the female Mandalorian.
I think so, yeah. Obviously, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 both are mentioned here, so...
I remember. The new Essential Guide to Droids, where it confirmed that Mitra Surik is a female.
Ah, yes, and that she was pretty much a hero of that game's Sith Wars. So basically confirmed that all light side choices were canon. So there's that too. So, yep, the new Essential Guide to Droids pretty much. And also, let's not forget that the new Essential Chronology also pretty much confirmed Revan's gender as male. So those two guides, yeah, it actually does say that he's male. So yeah, basically those two pretty much, yeah, this book pretty much carries on that info that Revan was male and that the Exile was female, and yeah, they both pretty much were light side. So, yep, there is that indeed. Now, in regards to other EU connections, well, there's the obvious Drummond costs. So this one, well, some people will probably assume it's from SWTOR, from other sources, but actually this originated all the way back to Star Wars Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith. Yep, the small expansion / game that you play as Mara Jade. That's actually the first ever appearance of Drummond costs. So... that one is there. Data holocrons, or datacrons you want to call them, those actually first appeared in Darth Maul Shadowhunter. So yeah, they're pretty much holocrons that non-force sensitives can actually use. So yeah, type of holocrons. Night goggles, apparently those actually first appeared in a thing called Twin Stars of Kira, basically West End games.
Council of Burst Knowledge was actually mentioned in the book, and I think that's like appears in Darbane Dynasty of Evil.
Possibly, yeah, could be. So yeah, Now, in terms of guides, well, the Essential Reader's Companion pretty much references the events of this book as well as all the others. So that pretty much straightforward. It is directly tied into this book. So there's that too. As for other sources, well,
Don't get Cosmic Wardrobe is triggered.
okay, there's that indeed, and then there's mentions of, well, obviously the Great High, the Dark Wars, which that was pretty much, yep, from Knights of the Old Republic 2. Yep, plenty of references stuff. Other than that, I don't think I can think of other sources that I can think of. Mostly because a good chunk of them deal with Knights of the Republic 1, 2, Tales of the Jedi, and SWTOR. So there hardly is those from other EU places. So there is that. Do you guys don't have any others?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Okay, then I guess now we should get into the conclusion. So, who wants to go first? The conclusion.
I'll go.
Okay.
Now, you might have problems with the Revan novel, but to call this book an abomination or even below average is just wrong. No, that's wrong. So, yeah, give the book a shot. Don't listen to crazy KOTOR 2 fanboys and read the book. Decide for your own whether it is truly the horrendous novel that these people claim to be. I'm finished.
Okay, Harbinger?
Yeah, like I said, I never really had a particular attachment to an idea of Revan that wasn't the one present in SWTOR, because I just played SWTOR first, so I didn't have many of the issues people brought up when it came to the book. I do think it has a lot of flaws, especially at the end, but I think it's still a pretty decent book. Like, I don't think Drew Karpyshyn is a bad writer. I don't think I also don't think, because like a lot of the times when it comes to discussing this book, we end up falling into like these conspiracy theories that he was somehow petty and vindictive towards Knights of the Republic too. Like, no, it's just he hadn't played the game. He was ignorant about a lot of the things from the game, but it wasn't like something malicious he did, twirling his mustache and drawing nasty things on a picture of Chris Avalon. It was just something, he could have written better. Like, I don't think we should assume malicious intent. And I'd say, yeah, give the book a shot. Even if you like Knights of the Old Republic, there might be some stuff that you like in the book. I've seen some KOTOR fans who do like it. I've seen KOTOR fans who heavily dislike it. And I think that's something that you should, decide for yourself once you do read it.
Mm-hmm. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. As for me, well, book definitely was better than I expected, but some of the criticisms from people, especially in regards to KOTOR 2, definitely were valid. Not so much the criticisms where the book is a piece of shit or that it's below average. No, those definitely are exaggerated. So the book is better than average. It's much better than that. So it actually is. It's good. It's just a second part where definitely some issues come up, especially if you played both KOTOR games. So that's definitely the bigger issues. But yeah, read the book and decide for yourself if you like it or not like it. I definitely recommend first playing Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, considering that it's supposed to be somewhat of a continuation to both of those games. So you should first play those, then read the Revan book. It's definitely gonna be needed to get a good grasp on the characters that are in the non-original characters, of course, that are here. The characters from Knights of the Republic 1 and 2, to definitely get a better idea of how they are. So there is that. SWTOR fans, them obviously they have already read this book or were probably gonna read it. So
Sorry to interrupt. I would recommend this book to anyone who does enjoy SWTOR, specifically to anyone who enjoys Scourge or the Sith Emperor, because again, this is where a lot of these things were set up. So yeah, you should give this a read.
yeah, so SWTOR fans, definitely this is a must read, so no issues with them. Old Republic fans, well, play Knights of the Republic 1 and 2, then yeah, read this and see if you like it or not like it. So, yep, there is that. Now, as for... So, those are my full thoughts on the book. Like the first part, second part a bit iffy, but overall the book is pretty good. Now, as for what the next podcast will be, well, that's going to be a tough one because there's obviously the other SWTOR books to tackle, but there's also some other stuff that we have some interest in particular, like the Darth Bane trilogy, because that's one we've kind of had some interest in tackling for a bit of a while, even before the 3-week hiatus. So yeah, we'll see which is the next video. It could be either another SWTOR book, or it could be the Darth Bane trilogy, or maybe something else. We'll have to see. So it's definitely going to be Old Republic related. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that. At least it was going to be Old Republic related. What we're going to do next. So there is that. And with that, well, this is pretty much the end of the Revan podcast. So we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars video. Bye-bye.
Bye.